Welcome back to the day's adventure, where each episode takes us deeper into the wild heart of Tanzania. I'm your host, David Visser, and today we continue our safari journey through the breathtaking landscapes of Tarangire National Park. So far, we've marveled at the grace of the giraffe, the stealth of the leopard, and witnessed the raw power of the African wilderness up close. In this episode, we start our day with fresh eyes and eager hearts. We've slept under the African sky, woke up to the sounds of the wild, and now it's time to explore more of the vast and untamed beauty of Tarangire. Today promises more encounters with nature's most awe-inspiring creatures. This time, we'll come face to face with one of Africa's most efficient hunters and witness the intricate dance of survival in the wild. So with breakfast behind us and cameras in hand, we set off into the cool morning air, ready for the next adventure. Tarangire is calling, with its baobab trees and sprawling savanna. Let's dive in. There's so much to explore. As we left the lodge, it didn't take long before we had our first encounter of the day. A beautiful red and yellow barbet perched on a nearby branch. Its vibrant head and bold black and white wings stood out against the morning light. It was like nature's own greeting as we ventured deeper into the park. A few kilometers further, we passed more zebra, which had become so abundant by now, it was almost humorous. But despite how common they seemed, I couldn't help but admire the beauty of each one grazing so casually in the early morning hours. Next up was a small herd of wildebeest, about 30 strong. These animals, with their odd yet striking appearance, are built for both speed and endurance. Despite their somewhat awkward look, wildebeest are formidable, capable of reaching speeds up to 50 miles per hour when evading predators. Their muscular build and endurance allow them to travel vast distances, a necessary adaptation for their seasonal migration. As we watched the wildebeest grazing, a couple of birds caught my attention. A pair of mouse birds and some ground plovers scurrying about. But then, just a short distance away from our jeep, I witnessed something that was nothing short of spectacular. About 50 feet away, an elegant secretary bird was in the middle of a hunt. It had caught a large puff adder, a venomous snake, and was systematically dismantling it with incredible precision. The secretary bird is a remarkable bird, a blend of elegance and power. With the body of an eagle, but the legs of a crane, it towered above the grasses. Its striking red face and regal black crest standing out vividly. This bird was a master of its domain, and its prey didn't stand a chance. The puff adder was at least 3 feet long, but the secretary bird made quick work of it. Using its powerful talons, the bird stomped on the snake with immense force, tearing it apart with its sharp beak. It was an incredible display of natural efficiency and power. The secretary bird is well known for its hunting abilities, particularly when it comes to snakes, and watching this unfold in front of us was like witnessing a scene from a documentary. Watching the secretary bird handle the puff adder was like watching a well-choreographed dance, swift and deliberate. These birds are also known for their lifelong pair bonds, returning to the same nests year after year. The nest is typically in the canopy of an acacia tree, and pairs will raise 2 to 3 chicks together. Once paired, these birds stay together for life. The puff adder, a venomous snake found throughout Africa, was no match for this skilled hunter. The bird's wingspan was nearly 2 meters wide, and it used its large wings to shield itself while it struck with precision, leaving nothing to chance. It was a humbling reminder of nature's balance, both brutal and beautiful. You can see some of these moments captured on our YouTube channel and our Instagram page, where I managed to get a few great videos and snap some photos of this magnificent bird in action. Watching the secretary bird for some time was like being in a trance, but time doesn't seem to exist on safari. The world around you shifts at a different pace. As we slowly moved on, we passed a few incredibly enormous baobab trees, ancient giants towering over the landscape. These trees are true survivors, with some of them living up to 3,000 years. Their thick bottle-like trunks store water, sustaining them through the dry season, and even providing shelter and food to countless animals, including elephants that chew on their bark, stripping it to access the moisture inside. The baobab tree is more than just a tree. It's a symbol of resilience. It's known by many names: the upside-down tree, the monkey bread tree, and even the dead rat tree because of the appearance of its fruit. Over 300 uses have been discovered for this magnificent tree, from its fruits and leaves to its massive trunk. It provides food, medicine, shelter, and even beer. Its fruits are rich in antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals, packed with more vitamin C than oranges and more potassium than bananas. As we passed beneath its ancient branches, I couldn't help but marvel at how essential the baobab tree is to both people and the wildlife here in Africa. As we continued along the dusty, bumpy path, constantly scanning the tree line and open grasslands, James pointed out an old male giraffe, a stately figure with a darker coat, a sure sign of age. Giraffes darken as they grow older. Some research suggests it's due to the testosterone levels at around the age of 8, and also could coincide with their social status. Despite his age, he still had the grace and dignity of his younger counterparts. Now, giraffes typically live up to 20 to 25 years in the wild. Not far down the road, we heard a flurry of bird chatter. That's when we spotted it, one of the most beautiful birds in Africa, the lilac-breasted roller. This bird looks like it was painted by a master artist, with vibrant hues of purple, turquoise, and blue decorating its body. It perched proudly on a branch, and I couldn't resist capturing its beauty through my camera lens. If you've ever wanted to see one of nature's most vivid creations, this bird is it. But that wasn't the only bird gracing us with its presence. A flock of white-headed mouse birds followed close by, clumsily bouncing between branches like they were gossiping among themselves. These birds are slender with soft, hair-like feathers and long tails. Though they might not have the bright colors of a roller, they have a charm all their own. They often hang upside down to feed on berries and buds, creating a comical yet captivating sight. As we moved along the dusty road, we stumbled upon another gem of the African bush, the tiny and adorable dik-dik. These miniature antelopes, standing no more than 16 inches tall, darted in and out of the tall grass, always on high alert. Watching a pair of them weave through the bushes, I couldn't help but smile. Their name comes from the sound they make. It's a whistle through their noses that warns other animals of danger. Dik-diks are perfectly adapted to the harsh environment of the savanna. They don't need to drink water. They get all their moisture they need from the plants they eat. And with the driest feces and the most concentrated urine of any ungulate, they conserve water with incredible efficiency. These creatures may be small, but their resilience is nothing short of remarkable. We watched them for a few moments as they darted in and out of the grass before disappearing completely from view, blending seamlessly into the golden brown landscape. We weren't alone for long, though. Just ahead, a herd of zebra and antelope made their way toward a distant waterhole. The sight of them moving across the landscape was hypnotic, a reminder of the rhythms of life that govern these plains. The dusty, bumpy roads were just part of the adventure. As we rattled along, you could almost imagine what it must have been like to traverse these paths before the comfort of the modern safari jeep we found ourselves in. Today was shaping up to be a bird watcher's dream, a photographer's paradise. Our next stop was something truly special. Perched atop an acacia tree, gripping a sturdy branch with its large talons, was the majestic brown snake eagle. Its head turned nearly 80 degrees as it locked its intense gaze directly on us. Those piercing yellow-orange eyes were unlike anything I'd ever seen in a bird. It was a moment frozen in time, as this master predator seemed to assess us with the same focus it uses to hunt its prey. The brown snake eagle, as its name suggests, is a specialist in hunting snakes, often extremely venomous ones like cobras and puff adders. Its legs protected by thick imbricated scales that are designed to fend off deadly snake bites. It's an opportunistic hunter, swooping down from exposed perches and trees to snatch its prey from the ground. What's remarkable is how it decapitates a snake before devouring it or taking it back to its nest, a testament to its lethal precision. Just as we were captivated by the eagle's intense presence, a large female ostrich appeared from the bush. Despite her relatively plain brown plumage, she stood out against the straw-colored grasses, pecking at the ground in search of succulents and roots. She seemed curious about us for a moment, before nonchalantly continuing on her way, fading back into the bush. It wasn't long before we encountered another incredible sight. A friendly male giraffe taking shelter in the shade, seemingly amused by our presence. He stood there, relaxed and unbothered by us, casually observing, as if trying to figure us out. On the opposite side of the road, a group of vervet monkeys were causing quite the scene. The youngsters were playfully tugging at each other's tails, darting through the sturdy bush. It was impossible not to laugh watching them, their antics a reminder of how similar they are to us. Vervet monkeys are one of the most widespread species across Africa, and their social structures are surprisingly similar to ours. They live in troops with close-knit family units, where siblings grow up supporting and sometimes competing against each other. Males often leave the troop when they mature, joining the neighborhood groups to help reduce inbreeding and diversifying the population. Watching these vervet youngsters at play, you could easily imagine the sibling dynamics at work, much like human families. As we drove onward, the bush thinned out and we spotted another favorite of ours, the Tanzanian red-billed hornbill, perched perfectly on a low-hanging dead tree branch only about 3 feet off the ground. It looked as if it had posed just for us. This hornbill's striking red bill contrasted beautifully against its dark eyes and heavily spotted back. You could see why they are such captivating subjects for bird watchers and photographers alike. Hornbills are fascinating creatures. Their first two neck vertebrae are fused in order to support their large bills. And they have an unusual parenting strategy. The female seals herself into a tree cavity while she incubates the eggs, leaving only a small slit for the male to pass food through. It's a remarkable process that keeps both mother and chicks safe from predators until they're ready to emerge. Hornbills are also omnivores. Their diets consist of fruits, insects, and small animals. As we admired the hornbill, we also spotted another lilac-breasted roller in the distance, perched elegantly high in the treetops. Now, not far from that, a shrike was scanning the area for its next meal. There's something magical about seeing these birds in their natural habitat. So vibrant, so alive. With noon fast approaching and our stomachs making noises louder than the elephants, James decided it was time for a lunch break. He led us to a beautiful picnic spot perched on top of a hill, offering a panoramic view of Tarangire. It was the perfect place to relax, or so we thought. As we unpacked our lunches, we realized we weren't alone. A troop of vervet monkeys had strategically stationed themselves nearby. Their beady little eyes locked on our snacks like laser-guided missiles. Before we could even set up properly, Sid fell victim to one of these cheeky little masterminds. In a blink of an eye, a monkey had darted in and grabbed his banana and bolted back to the trees with a prize held high like he had just won a gold medal. Sid stood there in shock, banana-less, while the rest of us erupted into laughter. Of course, being the super supportive kind of friends we were, we spent the next few minutes teasing him about the contribution to the monkey buffet. But karma has a funny way of humbling you. Just as I was mid-sentence chuckling at Sid's misfortune, I became the next target. Out of nowhere, another monkey swooped in. Its tiny little hands grabbed half of my sandwich right off the table in front of me. I swear it gave me a smug look before disappearing into the bushes. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, and soon we were all laughing so hard we could barely breathe. James, watching this circus unfold, simply shook his head with a knowing smile. These vervet monkeys were clearly pros. They had probably run this game on countless tourists. It was one of those moments that reminded us we were visitors in their world, and they weren't afraid to let us know who was really in charge. Lunch turned into a game of vigilance, with each of us guarding our food like they were crown jewels. Despite the monkey antics, or maybe because of them, it ended up being one of the funniest and most memorable meals of the trip. The park wardens did their best to shoo the monkeys away, but you could tell it was all part of the routine. These monkeys had perfected the art of stealing lunches, and the playful back and forth between them and the warden was more of a game than anything serious. After a much-needed break and some laughs over our lunch theft courtesy of the vervet monkeys, we took in the expansive view of Tarangire from our hilltop picnic area. You could feel the sheer vastness of the park stretching out before us, endless horizons where the land meets the sky, a mosaic of golden grasses and ancient baobab trees. With our bellies full and our spirits high, we climbed back into the Jeep, eager to see what the afternoon had in store. Cameras at the ready, we set off again with excited energy as we rolled back down the bumpy, dusty road. James expertly navigated the winding paths as we passed herds of zebra, wildebeest, and antelope, their stripes and spots blending into the grasslands, yet each individual standing out in its own way. Their gentle grazing created a rhythm to the landscape, a peaceful cadence that felt almost hypnotic. But then we encountered the true giants of the African landscape, the elephant. And this time, it wasn't just a distant view, they were right there, a herd of mothers and calves only a few feet away. Imagine this, a dozen elephants, each one a masterpiece of nature's design, with weathered skin that seemed to hold the secrets of the savannah. The older ones moved with grace that contrasted their size, methodically tearing leaves from the thorny branches. Their trunks curled with incredible precision. But the highlight for me was the young calves. One tiny calf, no more than a year old, peeked out at us from behind his mother's massive legs, his wide, curious eyes taking in the strange sight of our vehicle. You could see the wonder in his gaze as he tried out a little mock charge, a clumsy, playful rush towards our Jeep, ears flapping as if to say, "Look at me, I'm tough." It was almost as if he was practicing for the future, totally unaware of how endearing he was. His mother stood firm above him, her towering frame a protective barrier, and with a single sweep of her trunk, she nudged him back to safety. I found myself completely absorbed by their interaction, marveling at the gentle way she guided him, yet always alert to any potential danger around her. The closeness of the encounter was absolutely awe-inspiring. This particular elephant, her trunk curling gracefully upward toward a tangle of thorny acacia bushes, seemed like a living relic of the savannah. Each wrinkle of her thick, weathered skin was etched with stories of survival, decades spent under the unyielding African sun. Through seasons of plenty and hardship, her movements were deliberate and serene, as though she carried the wisdom of generations within her towering frame. As I zoomed in with my camera, I could see every detail, the intricate folds around her eyes, her long, delicate lashes swaying gently as she blinked with purpose. Her eye met mine through the lens, and for a moment, it felt like she was truly considering us, weighing the presence of our Jeep against her ancient instincts. There was no fear, only a quiet curiosity, as if she had decided we're no threat to her herd. The air was thick with the earthy, musky scent of the elephants, mingling with the warm breeze that rustled through the acacia trees. Every now and then, a low, rumbling vibration resonated through the ground, a soundless language that connected her to other members of the herd. It was a language not just heard, but felt deep in the chest, like a heartbeat of the wild. Her trunk worked methodically, stripping leaves from the thorny branches, with a precision that seemed almost impossible for something so massive. Dust particles danced in the golden light as she shook loose a small branch, the dry rustle of leaves adding to the symphony of the savannah. It was a moment that felt timeless, watching her so closely, surrounded by the sights, sounds, and smells of her world. I felt a profound sense of humility. It was as though we were witnessing a piece of eternity, one that would remain long after we were gone, a reminder of the unyielding beauty and resilience of the natural world. I could have stayed in that spot for hours, watching the calves play and the older elephants move with that slow, deliberate grace. But then a crackle came over the CB, and James' demeanor shifted. "Let's go," he said. "A leopard has been spotted with a fresh kill nearby." With that, we were off, each of us hopeful for a closer encounter of one of the most elusive big cats. Just 15 minutes later, we found ourselves perched on the edge of a dried-up riverbank, looking down at a lifeless antelope in the riverbed below. But the leopard was nowhere in sight. Out came the binoculars as we scanned the opposite bank for any sign of movement. James, with his eagle eyes, pointed out a spot, about 800 meters up a hill, under a pair of tall bushes, where a leopard lay in the shade facing us. Even from that distance, you could see its chest heaving, still panting from the effort of taking down its prey. The dappled pattern of his coat blended seamlessly into the shadows, made it nearly invisible against the backdrop of the dry leaves and tangled bushes. It was a surreal moment, knowing that this beautiful yet deadly predator was just on the other side, hidden from view, watching us. We managed a few long-distance shots, but James knew better than to linger. We backed out quietly, wanting to give the leopard a chance to return to its meal in peace. But just before we made our way back to the main trail, a small surprise caught our attention. 3 little hyraxes peeking out from a hollow in the massive tree trunk. They were perfectly camouflaged, with their brownish bodies blending in with the rough bark. Only their little white eyebrows and curious eyes gave them away. They seemed more intrigued than frightened, tilting their heads as they watched us, almost like tiny guardians in their hidden world. Hyraxes may look like rodents, but they share a surprising connection to their much larger relatives, the elephants. Despite their small size, they have unique similarities with ancient ungulates, from which elephants are thought to have evolved. It's fascinating to think that these tiny creatures, with their specialized climbing abilities and built-in sun visors, are distant cousins to the giants of the savannah. They seem so content perched in their safe little nook, while the leopard prowled just a short distance away. We didn't linger long, wanting to let the leopard get back to its dinner undisturbed. Rolling down the road, the mood in the Jeep was a mix of satisfaction from our encounters and eager anticipation of what might come next. Within minutes, we were back on the main road, more like a well-worn path through the wilderness, and just like that, we stumbled upon a collective of baboons, each going about their day in the golden afternoon light. Mothers carried their tiny infants, cradling them close, while other little ones chased each other through the dust, always within a few feet of Mother's watchful eye. In the center of the scene was a large, well-groomed male baboon, his posture confident and commanding. The troop was a small family of about 6 or 7 females, all with infants clinging to their backs, and a few young males exploring their surroundings with boundless energy. The big male kept a watchful eye on us, as if to let us know he was in charge. It's believed that these baboons sometimes share territory with Thompson's gazelles, using each other as early warning systems against predators. But interestingly, large males can sometimes steal and eat young gazelles, a stark reminder of the delicate balance between survival and coexistence. Not far from the road, a magnificent eland emerged from the tall golden grass, its sheer size and elegant stride commanding attention. The eland is the largest of all antelope species, its muscular build and spiral horns making it one of Africa's most recognizable animals. Its tawny coat gleamed in the sunlight, while faint white stripes along its flanks hinted at the species' natural camouflage in the dappled light of the savannah. James, ever the wealth of knowledge, told us about their fascinating adaptations. Elands have extraordinary ability to regulate their body temperature, allowing them to thrive in the hottest, driest climate. Their large dewlaps act as natural radiators, helping to cool their blood in the sweltering heat. And then there was the sound, the elusive knee clicks. Although we weren't close enough to hear it ourselves, James explained how these tendons in their knees produce a distinctive clicking noise with each step, a kind of acoustic signature that allows members of the herd to keep track of each other in dense terrain. As the eland moved effortlessly through the grass, its horns glint against the sunlit backdrop. The scene was a masterpiece of nature, raw, untamed, and awe-inspiring. It felt as though time had slowed, allowing us to soak in the presence of this regal creature, a true emblem of Africa's wilderness. And just a few meters up the road, James slowed the Jeep as we encountered another iconic resident of the savannah, the warthog, or as we affectionately call them, Pumbaa and his friends. With their thick, bristled red manes and their scuffy white beards, they trotted through the dry grass with their tails held high like tiny little antennae. At first glance, warthogs might seem comical or even awkward, but the more you watch them, the more their charm reveals itself. These resilient creatures are perfectly adapted to the harsh realities of the savannah. Their compact bodies allow them to maneuver through dense vegetation, while their large curved tusks serve as both tools for digging and formidable weapons against predators. Despite their tough exterior, warthogs are surprisingly social animals. They live in family groups called sounders, typically led by a dominant female. Their dens are often borrowed from aardvarks, which they enter tail first to keep an eye on potential predators. As we watched a large male warthog emerge from the bushes, flanked by a trio of smaller, younger ones trailing behind, the way they moved, proud yet cautious, was captivating. Their movements told a story of survival, determination, and perhaps a little bit of humor, as one youngster tripped over a clump of grass, quickly regaining its footing and trotting to catch up with the others. In that moment, I felt myself smiling, feeling a deep appreciation for these often overlooked animals. The warthog, with their quirky personalities and enduring spirits, embody the resilience and beauty of life on the savannah. With every turn of the trail, it felt as though Tarangire was revealing a new chapter of its story. The sun high in the sky, James hinted at our next stop, a major watering hole teeming with life, a place where the rhythms of the savannah come alive, and where I encountered a species I had never seen before. But that story, my friends, is for the next episode. In the next chapter of our journey, you'll witness the playful antics of baby elephants and the breathtaking energy of a bustling waterhole, alive with creatures big and small. It's a scene straight out of a wildlife documentary, and the kind of moment that stays etched in your memory forever. So don't miss what's coming up next. The adventure is far from over, and I can't wait to take you with me. Until then, stay curious, stay engaged, and never stop chasing that next great adventure. The world is full of wonders, and your next journey is just one episode away. That's it for this episode of The Day's Adventure. Remember, stay curious, stay engaged, and never stop chasing the next great adventure. The world is full of wonders, and your next journey is just one episode away. To keep the adventure alive, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for the video versions and exclusive behind-the-scenes content. Want more? Hit subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you'll never miss the next thrilling episode. The world's waiting. See you next time on The Day's Adventure.